Let me give you a very simple example of how you can set your own law. Pretend you have two neighbors. One neighbor has posted a sign at the end of his driveway that says, "No parking here, or it will cost you $500 per day." The other neighbor does not have a sign on his driveway. So, you come home one day and there are a bunch of people parked in your driveway, and you do not have a no parking sign. And now you need to park somewhere. So you decide to park at your neighbor's driveway. Which neighbor are you going to park at? The neighbor that posted the no parking sign, or the neighbor that does not have a no parking sign posted? You are going to park at the driveway that does not have a no parking sign. That is the spot you are going to choose. You are not going to choose the parking spot that says, "Don't park here or it will cost you $500. Well, what did that man or woman do that was different than the other neighbor? Did he use some kind of weird, strange, crazy law to set his law upon his property? No, of course not. He had the right to set his law upon his property, and that is what he did by posting the no parking sign. Even while you're in the so-called public, you have the law surrounding you. You have the law and are able to set your limits and set your rights. But if you don't set those rights, I am going to think that by default that I have the authority to park in your driveway. You didn't put a sign there to tell me otherwise. The same is true for your body. Your body is your property. Wherever you are going, you are taking that property with you. You are within that property, and you need to establish your law for your property. The way to do that is by way of notice, in advance, to those of mankind that may act in certain positions of implied authority. By learning your rights as a man or a woman, and being able to express them as and when you need to, you are able to set the law for your property, in this instance, your body. Most people do not actually understand what the word authority means. Authority is something that you give. I give my babysitter authority to watch my son or daughter. I give her the authority. Guess what? When I get home, I remove that authority. She does not have rights to my son or daughter or to my home. Of course she has rights to herself, not to be caused harm and to be left alone and all those kinds of things. Of course. But she does not have rights to my property. She does not have rights to my sons or daughters. She is only authorized by me in order to do so. It is the same thing with police officers. It is the same thing with judges. It is the same thing with prosecutors. We have to authorize them in order for them to be able to do what they do to us. You are going to learn that in the future chapters. You are going to see how there is no way for them to gain authority over you once you truly understand this stuff. They might do something wrong. Okay, so you will give them time to bring forth remedy. And if they don't bring forth remedy, you are going to hold that man or woman liable. So it is one of these things where once you get to this point, there is no more court. There is no more fearing government officials and all this kinds of stuff. You will look at them like a little white mouse surrounded by mouse traps. Careful there, public servant. You are talking to a man or a woman now. Mankind does not need to fear the big brother shadow government with the 20 million cameras everywhere all staring at you. Ooh, they're gonna get you. Nope. Who is they? Who is Mr. Government? You know, you need to have a bit of courage to be of mankind. You know, it's kind of like, no, I'm not going to do that. Prove it. Prove that you have the right to tell me to do all that kind of stuff. I won't go into this story in much detail now, because I'm going to tell the story later. But a man I know did discover this logistically as true through life experiences, even at a young age. He was a bit of a wild guy growing up, and would get caught for all kinds of things. He would never do any wrongs, but he would break all kinds of legal acts, statutes, and codes. Well, his buddies would all go to court with all these high-priced lawyers, these $4,000, $5,000 lawyers, and he was always like, screw that, and he would just go to the court and defend himself. And his buddies and him would get the same charges, and he would walk away with a $125 fine. And his buddies with the lawyers would walk out with like 6 months probation and community service, maybe even a couple weekends of jail time. And they were never quite able to figure out why this one guy was always able to do this. Even though he didn't know how to be a man, he did learn that by not accepting a lawyer and taking that lawyer on, the court basically had to play with him with much caution. Why? Because he was not 7 levels below the creation of the Creator like his buddies. He was only 4 or 5 levels below the creation of the Creator. Once they accepted that lawyer, he represents them and turns them into clients, turns them into a defendant, And now, boom, 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 there they are being represented by their so-called champion. And seeing as they are being fairly represented by someone from the Bar Association, obviously it is a fair, impartial tribunal. When the other guy went to court, there was no fair, impartial tribunal. The judge is a part of the legal society, the prosecutor is a part of the legal society, and he was not part of the legal society. When they would ask him, would you like to be a part of the legal society? He would say, no thank you. They would say, would you like to be a defendant? Would you like a lawyer? Would you like to put a plea in, guilty or not guilty? Would you like to respond to your all caps name and not clarify on the record that you are here as a man or a woman? No, I would simply like to bring forth remedy for that which I am accused of, and, oh, by the way, it appears that perhaps you are attempting trespass by way of barratry with this administrative procedure against a man or woman, and maybe I will need to seek some remedy for that as well. Soon this will become a fundamental understanding, but first you will need to unlearn all of the nonsense that you have accumulated and relearn how to be a man or a woman. You will need to learn how to separate law and legal in your mind, so that you can determine what is law and what is legal. Right now, you are at a stage where you know there is a difference, but it is not clear yet. It is kind of like a bunch of your board games have fallen in your closet, and all the pieces are mixed together on the floor. Well, now we have the task of separating the 2 or 3 or 4 different games that are in your mind right now and putting all the pieces back in their right boxes. You will be known by your words in this world. Knowledge truly is power. But if you walk around all day saying that you are a mental patient, then you cannot be surprised when the guys in the white jackets come and take you away. Expressing one's law is done through taking responsibility and going to honor and removing controversy and stuff like that. A lot of people don't know all this, so they try to do things like, oh no, the court is summoning me. I will send them my live birth record. That'll make them go away. Not me. I would be excited to get summoned to court. Oh, finally, I hope I get there. I hope that it doesn't just get shut down by the notice that I send as a response. I know this sounds a bit arrogant, but honestly, I would love to get summoned to court, but it is harder to get to court than one might think once you act as mankind. It is like being a championship fighter, and now nobody wants to fight you anymore. But me? I would love the opportunity to get before the court and speak law to these judges. I honestly do not know if many of these judges have ever had a man or a woman come before them in their entire career. All day, every day, they deal with clients, they deal with defendants and attorneys and citizens. This knowledge I am teaching you is long forgotten by the collective consciousness. Long, 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 long forgotten. I am talking decades forgotten, generations forgotten. The stories I was told by the people that taught law to me is that the judges they interacted with while learning law, the judges loved having some banter with mankind. They would say things like, "This is the first time in 15 years that I have encountered this. But I remember hearing about this in my judgeship school." But when people go into these courts as a freeman or a sovereign citizen or that kind of nonsense, the response is the opposite. I want to be very clear. The legal society has now defined those titles within their legal codes, acts, and statutes. They can define those things as a domestic terrorist, as an OPC litigant, and all kinds of crazy stuff. But guess what they cannot define? Man and woman.